The year 2024 isn't just another election year. It's a crossroads for the American economy, and the decisions made in the voting booth will echo in your investment portfolio. The stakes are high, with two drastically different economic visions vying for control of the nation's future. Understanding these visions is not just about politics, it's about securing your financial well-being in a rapidly changing world. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting, the outcome of this election will impact your financial decisions. From stock market swings to shifts in industry landscapes, the policies implemented by the next president will shape the economic playing field for years to come. This isn't just about picking a candidate. It's about understanding the forces that will drive your investments in the years ahead. The 2024 election presents a stark choice between familiar ground and a progressive leap. On one hand, we have the return of Donald Trump, a businessman turned politician known for his unconventional approach to economics. On the other hand, Kamala Harris, the incumbent vice president, offers a more traditional Democratic stance, emphasizing social programs and government intervention. Understanding their divergent approaches is crucial for navigating the post-election economic landscape. This video will equip you with the knowledge to make informed investment decisions, regardless of who occupies the Oval Office. Stay tuned as we delve into the economic policies of both candidates, analyzing their potential impact on your investments and providing insights to help you thrive in the years ahead.
Insights for the informed investor.
Section 2. The Contenders, Trump versus Harris. The 2024 presidential election sees a clash of titans, each representing a distinct economic ideology. Donald Trump, the Republican nominee, returns to the political arena with his signature brand of economic nationalism. His policies, often characterized by tax cuts, deregulation, and a focus on American industry, sent shockwaves through global markets during his first term. Kamala Harris, the Democratic incumbent, presents a stark contrast, advocating for a more interventionist approach. Her platform centers on social equity, climate action, and government-led investments in infrastructure and technology. These contrasting visions set the stage for a pivotal election, with the potential to reshape the American economic landscape for generations. Trump's economic policies, often dubbed Trumponomics, are a mix of traditional Republican ideals and populist measures. His signature achievement, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, slashed corporate tax rates and aimed to stimulate economic growth. However, critics argue that these cuts primarily benefited corporations and wealthy individuals, exacerbating income inequality. Harris, in contrast, proposes a more progressive tax system, advocating for higher taxes on corporations and high-income earners to fund social programs and public investments. Her approach reflects a growing sentiment within the Democratic Party that calls for addressing income inequality and investing in social safety nets. The choice between these two candidates represents a choice between two fundamentally different economic philosophies, each with profound implications for investors. Section 3. Two Paths, One Economy, Navigating the Investment Landscape. The 2024 election presents investors with a critical question. How will the policies of each candidate impact my portfolio? Trump's deregulation and tax cuts could create short-term market gains. Harris's focus on social programs and government investment could lead to sustainable growth. Navigating this landscape requires careful consideration of investment goals and risk tolerance. Diversification and understanding potential winners and losers are key. Section 1. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, Fueling the Boom. No policy defined Trump's economic agenda more than the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. This sweeping legislation slashed the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, a move touted by Republicans as a much-needed boost for American businesses. Proponents argued that lower taxes would lead to increased investment, higher wages, and a surge in economic growth. Indeed, the stock market soared to record highs in the wake of the tax cuts, and corporate profits surged. However, critics argued that these gains were largely driven by stock buybacks and benefited wealthy shareholders rather than trickling down to average workers. They pointed to stagnant wages and growing income inequality as evidence that the benefits of the tax cuts were not being widely shared. The debate over the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act continues to rage, with both sides pointing to economic data to support their claims. While the law undoubtedly provided a short-term sugar rush to the economy, its long-term impact remains a subject of fierce debate. Did it usher in a new era of American prosperity, or did it primarily serve to widen the gap between the rich and the poor? Understanding the nuances of this complex legislation is crucial for investors seeking to assess the potential impact of a second Trump term. Would he double down on his tax-cutting agenda, or would he pursue a more moderate course? The answer to this question will have significant implications for various sectors, from manufacturing to technology to finance. Central to Trump's economic philosophy was a belief in the power of deregulation. He argued that excessive government regulations were stifling American businesses, hindering innovation, and preventing job creation. Throughout his presidency, Trump made it a priority to roll back regulations across a wide range of industries, from finance to energy to healthcare. The financial industry in particular saw significant deregulation under Trump. His administration weakened parts of the Dodd-Frank Act, a landmark piece of legislation passed in response to the 2008 financial crisis. While proponents of deregulation argued that these moves would boost lending and economic growth, critics warned of a return to the risky practices that led to the financial meltdown. In the energy sector, Trump rolled back environmental regulations, arguing that they were hindering domestic energy production. He championed the expansion of oil and gas drilling, including in previously protected areas, and withdrew the United States from the Paris Agreement on climate change. These moves were met with fierce opposition from environmental groups, but were welcomed by the fossil fuel industry. The long-term consequences of Trump's deregulation agenda remain to be seen. Will it lead to a more dynamic and innovative economy, as his supporters claim, or will it result in weaker consumer protections, environmental degradation, and increased financial instability? Investors must carefully weigh these potential risks and rewards as they assess the potential impact of a second Trump term on their portfolios. Trump's approach to trade was perhaps the most unconventional and disruptive aspect of his economic policy. He abandoned decades of bipartisan consensus on free trade, arguing that other countries were taking advantage of the United States in trade deals. To protect American jobs and industries, Trump imposed tariffs on goods imported from China, the European Union, Canada, and Mexico, igniting trade wars that roiled global markets. The tariffs, which are essentially taxes on imported goods, were intended to make American products more competitive by raising the price of foreign competitors. However, they also led to higher costs for American businesses and consumers, who had to pay more for imported raw materials and finished goods. The tariffs also sparked retaliatory measures from other countries, further disrupting global trade flows. The trade war with China, in particular, had a significant impact on the global economy. The two countries imposed tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods, from soybeans and pork to smartphones and medical equipment. The tariffs strained relations between the world's two largest economies and injected a high degree of uncertainty into global markets. While Trump argued that his tough stance on trade was necessary to protect American jobs and intellectual property, critics countered that the tariffs were ultimately counterproductive, hurting American businesses and consumers more than they helped. The trade wars remain a contentious legacy of Trump's presidency, and their long-term impact on the global trading system is still unfolding. One of the most closely watched economic indicators during Trump's presidency was the unemployment rate. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the unemployment rate reached historic lows, falling to 3.5% in 2019, the lowest level in over 50 years. Trump frequently touted this achievement as evidence that his economic policies were working. The strong labor market was driven by a combination of factors, including the tax cuts, deregulation, and a surge in consumer and business confidence. Wages, however, remained relatively stagnant for most workers, despite the low unemployment rate. This led some economists to argue that the labor market was not as strong as the headline unemployment rate suggested. The COVID-19 pandemic delivered a devastating blow to the U.S. economy, sending the unemployment rate skyrocketing to nearly 15% in April 2020, the highest level since the Great Depression. Millions of Americans lost their jobs as businesses were forced to close their doors due to lockdown measures. The Trump administration responded with massive fiscal stimulus packages, including direct payments to individuals and loans to businesses, to cushion the economic blow. While the unemployment rate has since recovered significantly, it remains above pre-pandemic levels. The pandemic exposed vulnerabilities in the U.S. labor market, particularly for low-wage workers in service industries that were hit hardest by the lockdowns. The long-term impact of the pandemic on the labor market, including the rise of remote work and automation, remains to be seen. Investing in America. Rebuilding infrastructure for the 21st century. Kamala Harris has made infrastructure investment a cornerstone of her economic agenda. America's aging roads, bridges, airports, and water systems are a drag on economic growth. Her plan calls for federal funding to modernize infrastructure, creating jobs and boosting the economy. She envisions a system supporting high-speed rail, expanding broadband access, and modernizing the electrical grid for renewable energy. These investments would create jobs and improve quality of life. Critics argue it's too expensive and adds to the national debt. Harris counters that inaction costs more, essential for global competitiveness. The debate is about America's future competitiveness. Harris believes strategic investments can create jobs and boost growth, positioning the U.S. as a leader in future industries. The Green New Deal. Combating climate change through economic transformation. Kamala Harris is a vocal proponent of the Green New Deal, an ambitious plan to address climate change through a rapid transition to a clean energy economy. She views climate change as an economic opportunity, arguing that investing in renewable energy will create jobs, reduce pollution, and enhance national security. The Green New Deal aims for net zero greenhouse gas emissions within a decade. This involves transitioning to 100% renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and geothermal. It also includes energy efficiency upgrades and creating a smart grid. Critics argue it's unrealistic and would destroy fossil fuel jobs. They question the feasibility of transitioning to 100% renewable energy quickly. Proponents counter that the cost of inaction is greater, and the Green New Deal would create jobs and improve public health. The Green New Deal shifts climate change from a problem to an opportunity. Harris believes the transition to a clean energy economy will position the U.S. as a global leader in the fight against climate change. Taxing the wealthy, funding the future. A progressive approach to fiscal policy. Kamala Harris has proposed a significant overhaul of the U.S. tax code, advocating for higher taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations to fund social programs and public investments. Her plan aims to restore fairness to the tax code and generate revenue to invest in education, healthcare, infrastructure, and other priorities. Critics argue it would stifle economic growth and lead to higher taxes on the middle class. Harris counters that her plan would only impact the wealthiest Americans and fund programs benefiting all. The debate over tax policy is often framed as a battle between fairness and growth. Section 4. Affordable health care for all. A moral imperative and an economic engine. Kamala Harris is a staunch advocate for universal health care, believing that access to quality, affordable health care is a right, not a privilege. She supports a Medicare for All system that would provide comprehensive health coverage to all Americans through a single-payer government program. Critics argue it would lead to government rationing of health care, longer wait times, and lower quality care. Harris and supporters counter that a single-payer system would save money by reducing administrative costs and negotiating lower drug prices. The debate over healthcare reform is one of the most contentious issues in American politics. Harris believes that healthcare is a right, not a privilege, and that a single-payer system is the best way to achieve universal coverage. Her stance on healthcare stands in stark contrast to the Trump administration's efforts to undermine the Affordable Care Act. Section 1. The Trump Effect: Riding the Waves of Volatility. Donald Trump's presidency was anything but predictable, and the stock market certainly felt the impact of his unconventional style and policy decisions. From late-night tweets to trade war pronouncements, Trump's actions often sent markets into a frenzy. A second Trump term would likely usher in a similar era of volatility. Investors seeking to navigate a potential Trump market would need to brace themselves for a bumpy ride, characterized by short-term opportunities and sudden shifts in sentiment. A nimble and adaptable strategy, with a focus on risk management, would be essential for weathering the storms of a Trump presidency. Section 2. Deregulation and its discontents: a boon for some, a bane for others. Deregulation was a cornerstone of Trump's economic agenda, and he made significant strides in rolling back regulations across a wide range of industries. While deregulation can create opportunities for growth and innovation, it can also lead to increased risk and instability. Industries such as banking, energy, and pharmaceuticals could see a surge in profits as regulations are loosened. However, this deregulation could come at a cost, as weaker oversight could increase the risk of corporate malfeasance, environmental damage, or financial crises. Investors would need to carefully weigh these potential risks and rewards. A balanced approach, focused on both opportunity and risk, would be essential for navigating this complex landscape. Section 3. Trade Wars and Market Jitters. Navigating the uncertain terrain. Trump's protectionist trade policies, particularly his trade war with China, injected significant uncertainty into global markets. A second Trump term could see a continuation of these trade tensions. Investors would need to carefully assess their exposure to trade-sensitive sectors and consider hedging strategies to mitigate potential losses. A diversified portfolio, with a mix of domestic and international holdings, could help to spread risk. The uncertainty surrounding trade policy can make businesses hesitant to invest, consumers hesitant to spend, and investors hesitant to commit capital. Flexibility, adaptability, and a long-term perspective would be essential for weathering the storms of a potential trade war. Section 4. The Harris Factor: Stability, Sustainability, and Long-Term Growth. Kamala Harris represents a more traditional approach to economic policy, emphasizing stability, sustainability, and long-term growth. Her focus on social programs, climate action, and government investment in key sectors could create a more predictable environment for businesses and investors. Her emphasis on renewable energy, infrastructure, and technology could create significant opportunities for investors in these sectors. However, her plans to increase taxes on corporations and high-income earners could potentially dampen corporate profits. Sectors aligned with her policy priorities, such as clean energy, healthcare, and education, could offer compelling opportunities for long-term investors. Investors who prioritize environmental, social, and governance (ESG) factors in their investment decisions may find Harris's approach particularly appealing. Section 5. Green Energy. The next big thing, or a bubble waiting to burst. Trump has touted the potential of clean coal and natural gas, while Harris has championed a more aggressive transition to solar, wind, and other renewable sources. This bipartisan support for clean energy has created a boom in the sector, but investors are left wondering whether this is the next big thing or a bubble waiting to burst. A second Trump term could see continued growth in the renewable energy sector, but the pace of that growth would likely be slower and more incremental than under a Harris administration. A Harris presidency would likely usher in a more aggressive push for renewable energy, with significant government investment in clean energy technologies. This could create a boom in the sector, but it could also lead to overinvestment, inflated valuations, and a potential bubble. A discerning approach focused on fundamentals and long-term viability would be essential for separating the wheat from the chaff in a potentially frothy market. Section 6. Healthcare. Navigating the uncertain waters of reform. Trump has made no secret of his desire to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, while Harris has called for expanding and strengthening the ACA and moving towards a Medicare for All system. These divergent approaches create significant uncertainty for investors in the healthcare sector. A second Trump term could see renewed efforts to dismantle the ACA, potentially leading to increased volatility and uncertainty in the healthcare sector. A Harris presidency would likely bring greater stability to the healthcare sector, as she has expressed support for building upon the ACA and expanding coverage. However, her more progressive stance on healthcare could also lead to increased regulation, lower reimbursement rates, and potentially lower profits for some healthcare companies. Investors would need to weigh these potential risks and rewards, recognizing that a Harris administration would likely prioritize expanding access to affordable health care. Section 7. Taxes and spending. Weighing the impact on corporate profits. Tax policy is another area where Trump and Harris have starkly different views, and these differences could have significant implications for corporate profits and stock market performance. Trump's signature achievement was the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, which slashed the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%. Harris has proposed raising taxes on corporations and wealthy individuals to fund her social programs and public investments. A second Trump term would likely see a continuation of his low-tax policies, potentially providing a further boost to corporate profits and stock prices. However, the long-term sustainability of these tax cuts is questionable, as they have contributed to a ballooning federal budget deficit. Investors would need to weigh the short-term benefits of lower taxes against the long-term risks of rising debt and potential future tax increases. Section 8. The Global Picture. How U.S. elections ripple through international markets. While U.S. elections are primarily about domestic issues, they also have significant implications for the global economy and international markets. The United States is the world's largest economy and a major player in global trade, finance, and diplomacy. As such, changes in U.S. leadership and policy can send ripples throughout the global economy, affecting everything from currency exchange rates to commodity prices to stock market valuations. A second Trump term could lead to increased volatility and uncertainty in international markets, as his unpredictable style and protectionist trade policies have often rattled global investors. His confrontational approach to China, in particular, has created tensions that could escalate into a full-blown trade war, with negative consequences for the global economy. Investors would need to be prepared for a bumpy ride, with potential for both upside surprises and downside risks, depending on Trump's actions on the global stage. A Harris presidency, on the other hand, would likely be viewed as a stabilizing force in international markets, as her more traditional approach to diplomacy and trade would be welcomed by many U.S. allies. Her focus on climate change and multilateralism could also lead to greater international cooperation on these pressing issues, creating a more positive environment for global economic growth. Investors would likely view a Harris presidency as a period of greater predictability and stability, though her more progressive policy agenda could also lead to some adjustments in global markets. If Donald Trump returns to the White House, investors can expect a continuation of many of the policies that characterized his first term. Deregulation, tax cuts, and a focus on American industry would likely remain central to his economic agenda. While this approach carries inherent risks, it also presents unique opportunities for savvy investors. Sectors that benefited from Trump's policies in his first term, such as energy, finance, and defense, could see continued growth. Deregulation in these industries could lead to increased profits, while Trump's focus on energy independence and military strength could translate into favorable regulatory environments and increased government spending. Investors seeking to capitalize on a potential Trump bump should consider a balanced approach that combines short-term tactical plays with long-term strategic investments. Short-term opportunities might include investing in companies poised to benefit from deregulation or increased government contracts. Long-term strategies could involve focusing on sectors with strong secular growth trends, such as technology, healthcare, and consumer discretionary spending. However, investors should also be mindful of the risks associated with a second Trump term. His unpredictable trade policies and confrontational approach to international relations could create volatility and uncertainty in global markets. A diversified portfolio that includes both domestic and international holdings can help mitigate these risks. Kamala Harris's economic vision represents a significant departure from Trump's, with a greater emphasis on social equity, climate action, and government investment. While this approach may create some headwinds for certain sectors, it also presents compelling opportunities for investors who understand the shifting landscape. Harris's focus on clean energy, infrastructure, and healthcare could create a boom in these sectors. Her administration would likely prioritize investments in renewable energy technologies, sustainable infrastructure projects, and expanded healthcare coverage. Companies operating in these areas could see significant growth as government funding flows and consumer demand increases. Investors seeking to align their portfolios with Harris's priorities should consider a long-term investment horizon. Transitioning to a more sustainable and equitable economy will take time, and the benefits of these investments may not be immediately apparent. However, companies that are well-positioned to capitalize on these long-term trends could deliver significant returns for patient investors. Beyond specific sectors, Harris's broader economic agenda could create a more stable and predictable environment for businesses and investors. Her focus on multilateralism and diplomacy could reduce trade tensions and geopolitical risks, while her commitment to fiscal responsibility could inspire confidence in the long-term health of the U.S. economy. Regardless of who wins the 2024 election, investors should be prepared for a period of uncertainty and volatility. The global economy is facing numerous challenges, including rising inflation, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical tensions. These factors could create headwinds for markets regardless of who occupies the White House. In times of uncertainty, diversification is key. Investors should ensure that their portfolios are not overly concentrated in any one sector, asset class, or geographic region. A well-diversified portfolio can help cushion the blow of unexpected events and reduce overall risk. Investors should also consider hedging strategies to protect their portfolios from downside risk. This might involve investing in assets that tend to perform well during periods of economic uncertainty, such as gold, bonds, or defensive stocks. Alternatively, investors could use options or other derivatives to hedge against specific market risks. Another important strategy for navigating uncertainty is to stay informed. Investors should closely monitor economic data, policy developments, and geopolitical events to stay ahead of potential market-moving news. By staying informed and being prepared to adjust their portfolios accordingly, investors can better navigate the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Section 4. The Long View. Investing for a Sustainable Future. Beyond the short-term noise of election cycles, investors should maintain a long-term perspective. The global economy is undergoing a period of profound transformation, driven by technological innovation, demographic shifts, and climate change. These long-term trends will continue to shape the investment landscape for decades to come. Investors who can identify and capitalize on these long-term trends will be well-positioned to generate sustainable returns. This might involve investing in companies at the forefront of technological innovation, such as artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and biotechnology. It could also mean investing in companies that are developing solutions to address climate change, such as renewable energy, energy efficiency, and sustainable agriculture. Investing for a sustainable future is not just about generating financial returns. It's also about aligning your investments with your values. By investing in companies that are working to solve the world's most pressing problems, investors can help create a more sustainable and equitable future for all. Section 5. Beyond the ballot box. Factors that transcend election cycles. While elections are undoubtedly important, investors should remember that they are just one factor among many that influence market performance. Other factors such as economic growth, interest rates, inflation, and corporate earnings can have a more significant impact on markets in the long run. Investors should avoid making investment decisions solely based on political predictions. Elections are inherently unpredictable, and even if you correctly predict the winner, there is no guarantee that markets will react as expected. Instead of trying to time the market based on political events, investors should focus on building a diversified portfolio that can withstand a variety of economic conditions. This means investing in a mix of asset classes, sectors, and geographic regions that are appropriate for your risk tolerance and investment goals. By focusing on the fundamentals of investing, maintaining a long-term perspective, and avoiding emotional decision-making, investors can navigate the uncertainties of the political landscape and position themselves for long-term success. Remember, the best investment strategy is often the one that focuses on factors you can control, such as diversification, risk management, and disciplined investing. Section 1. The high stakes of 2024. Your money, your future. As we've explored throughout this video, the 2024 election is about far more than just picking a president. It's about choosing an economic path for America, one that will directly impact your financial well-being for years to come. The decisions made in the voting booth will reverberate through the stock market, influencing interest rates, inflation, and the overall investment climate. Whether you're saving for retirement, planning for your children's education, or simply trying to grow your wealth, the outcome of this election matters. The policies implemented by the next administration will shape the opportunities and challenges facing investors for years to come. Understanding these potential impacts is not about playing politics, it's about taking control of your financial future. We've examined the stark differences between Donald Trump's and Kamala Harris's economic visions. Trump's focus on deregulation, tax cuts, and a more confrontational approach to trade could create a volatile but potentially lucrative environment for investors willing to embrace risk. Harris's more measured approach, with an emphasis on social programs, climate action, and government investment, could lead to a more stable but potentially slower growth environment. The key takeaway is that there is no one-size-fits-all answer. The best investment strategy for you will depend on your individual circumstances, risk tolerance, and investment goals. But by understanding the potential impacts of each candidate's policies, you can make more informed decisions and position yourself for success, regardless of who occupies the Oval Office. Section 2. Trump or Harris. Two paths for investors. The choice between Trump and Harris presents investors with a clear dilemma: short-term volatility versus long-term stability. Trump's policies, while potentially disruptive, could create significant opportunities for investors seeking to capitalize on deregulation, tax cuts, and a potential surge in certain sectors. However, his unpredictable nature and confrontational approach to trade could also lead to significant market swings and geopolitical risks. Harris, on the other hand, offers a more predictable and stable path, with a focus on long-term investments in clean energy, infrastructure, and social programs. While her policies may not generate the same level of short-term excitement as Trump's, they could create a more sustainable and equitable economy, leading to long-term growth and stability for investors. The key is to align your investment strategy with your personal risk tolerance and investment timeline. If you're comfortable with volatility and have a shorter time horizon, a Trump presidency might offer opportunities for quick gains. If you prefer stability and have a longer-term outlook, a Harris presidency might be a better fit. Remember, there is no right or wrong answer. The important thing is to understand the potential risks and rewards of each path and make informed decisions that align with your individual financial goals. Section 3. Beyond the election. Guiding principles for investment success. While the 2024 election will undoubtedly have a significant impact on the markets, it's important to remember that elections are just one factor among many that influence investment performance. Regardless of who wins in November, there are certain guiding principles that can help investors navigate the uncertainties of the market and achieve their financial goals. First and foremost, diversification remains paramount. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Instead, spread your investments across a variety of asset classes, sectors, and geographic regions. This will help mitigate risk and ensure that your portfolio is well positioned to withstand market fluctuations. Second, stay informed but avoid emotional decision-making. The 24/7 news cycle can be overwhelming, and it's easy to get caught up in the hype of the latest market-moving headline. Remember, successful investing requires a long-term perspective and a disciplined approach. Don't let short-term noise distract you from your long-term goals. Finally, remember that investing is a marathon, not a sprint. Don't expect to get rich quick. Instead, focus on building a diversified portfolio, staying the course, and letting the power of compounding work its magic over time. The 2024 election presents investors with both challenges and opportunities. By understanding the potential impacts of each candidate's policies, diversifying your portfolio, and staying focused on your long-term goals, you can navigate the uncertainties ahead and position yourself for financial success. Thank you for watching.